Welcome to the Above Center Leadership Podcast. I'm Marcy.
And I'm Allison, and this is our chance to learn from leaders who know how to get results while staying above center.
Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to another Above Center podcast. I am so excited because Marcy and I today get to introduce you to our good friend, Jamey Maniscalco. Man, you're going to have to help me out there.
Maniscalco.
Well, Jamey is a neuroscientist, a former professor, and the founder of Manifest Wellness, which is a science-backed, human-driven coaching practice. So what does that mean, Jamey? What does that mean?
Yes. So I'm a neuroscientist at heart. And really, what I love to believe about how the world works and how we work as humans is what does the evidence show? And so here, everything that I approach around wellness, around health, around personal transformation is all backed in science. However, we need to bring the human aspect of this in. The human-driven component is how do we match what we know in the sciences, what the evidence shows, with what people actually need, with what people actually want, and what people can engage with sustainably. So this isn't a flash in the pan or something that remains aspirational forever, that change and health and wellness become part of your daily routine in a way that you want it to.
So it's what people will do that matters.
Exactly. All the academic literature in the world doesn't matter if nobody does anything about it.
I know that, yeah, Marcy, just for me personally, like the doing part, like I can say what I want to do, but it's the doing that's the hard part.
Yeah, sometimes this is referred to, and in business, this is the case as well, the knowing doing gap. We know what we should be doing. I know what I should be eating, and it's mostly not what I'm eating. And why is that? Because it's not always as tasty. It's not always as easy. It's not always as time effective. All of these things. And so really the way I've started thinking about your health and wellness or our collective health and wellness is let's be reasonable. Let's find ways that we can make small changes that lead to big transformations and find the smallest manageable thing that you need to do every now and again, whenever it might be, that yields the maximum impact. Because we've all seen New Year's resolution style wellness, New Year's resolution style health, New Year's resolution style change in mindset and leadership approaches, all of these kinds of things. And when you try to become a new person tomorrow, you can do it for a few days and you burn out very quickly. And the literature actually shows it can actually make things worse. You can regress even further away from where you want to be in a reactive way. So how can we make these small incremental steps day over day? And what you see, and I've done this myself, and I've felt it in addition to researching it, is you're a new person or you're changed in a way that you want more quickly than you think. A few months is not that long of a period, as long as you're expecting change to take months to years. But when you expect change to come overnight, a few months feels like forever. So a lot of this is about perspective and sustainability.
That's amazing. So I love just this conversation. I feel like there's going to be so many aha moments that I'm going to learn. Can we start with like the crux of how you get started? So you're trying to help somebody to think differently about change. And I know you have the neuroscience background, and then you also have the practicality about how you go about it. Can you just give us some insight on how you help people to really do the right habits they know they need to do to live this mindful, healthy way?
Absolutely. So for me, I always start with whether it's the client, the person listening, and stopping and trying to meet you where you're at as opposed to impose what might seem like general approaches. Well, you should be exercising, you should be eating only organic, that might not be a priority to you. And I don't know. So I start by listening, but really for those of you listening to the podcast, it's by stopping and identifying your goals. And for me, what I really like to do is I like to start with what brings you meaning and purpose in life. And to me, that's where we need to start because there's all sorts of literature on motivation. And what we see is extrinsic motivation, and we see it in the workplace all the time. Getting, obviously salary is one of the biggest extrinsic motivators towards work, but then even things like within the realm of health, getting a discount on your health insurance if you do this blood panel, if you do XYZ, extrinsic motivations tend to not work at all or nearly as effectively as intrinsic motivation. So what I like to start with is what matters to you. And for example, someone might highlight, I really want to be a fantastic working mother where I am not only crushing it at work, but I'm also there for all my kids' late afternoon activities. And we know that the mothers tend to take the lion's share of the work at home. And I want to be able to do that because I care about my kids, but I'm exhausted. I'm trying to balance all these things. How do I do this well? My family and my career are both paramount. Awesome. We've started with your meaning and your goals. And then where we back this into for me is always into the brain. I think a lot of people think health, wellness, they think leadership and business. They often think body. I need to lose weight. I need to be fit. I need to have stamina, right, to be able to do all these things. For me, what I think is you need a brain that's able to fire on all cylinders.
Mhm.
And if you have a brain that's firing on all cylinders, it gives you all the skills and capabilities to be the best working mother, to be the best triathlete, to be the best executive. Because you need emotional regulation and critical thinking and planning, and you need to be able to take others' perspectives and understand worst case scenarios versus likely scenarios, all of these kinds of things. And if your brain is exhausted from undersleeping, from overcaffeinating, from not feeding it the appropriate nutrients, it's not going to be firing on all cylinders, and you're not going to be able to be the best version of you for the things that matter most. And so now we know that the brain is critical.
Mhm.
And I take one step further back and I say, all right, what do we need to fuel our brain? And this is literally where I started my journey. How do I make my brain? I've been studying it for decades. How do I make my brain resilient? How do I make sure that I give my brain the best chance of performing its best and giving me the freedom in my life to do whatever I want and to age well?
Mhm.
And when I look at this, the evidence points wholeheartedly towards some pretty standard wellness practices. And so we back now into we live in a world where we think we need to find our solutions here, here, and here, and it's impossible, it's overwhelming. But when you actually look at the literature, you can do a few simple things that can take you 80% of the way. And the complexity and the availability of information in the world in which we live make it feel overwhelming, impossible to figure out. So what I want to do for people is help them see those small things that they can do, make it clear so they can get that 80% leg up to where it does get more nuanced and complicated.
Yeah, like where I love where this conversation's headed, like there's the journey of mindfulness that oh, I like your mug. There's a joy of mindfulness and where it's been, it's like it wasn't talked about. Mental health wasn't talked about at all, kind of the 90s and even the early 2000s. And then it's kind of been here. And then it's become a little bit more norm, but now we're at a point where we're so fast, we want tips and tricks.
Yes.
And we've lost the actual essence of what we need to do. So I feel like the way you're doing is like trying to get to that intrinsic place of who do you want to be, which probably goes into your quote that you just revealed. I'd love to know, like, let me ask you about your quote, and so that way you can drink out of your mug. But I'd love to hear your quote and let the audience see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do my little reveal. I love quotes and I love, I've got so many. So I actually really had to sit and think about the one I wanted to bring to you all in this context. And the one that has been really impactful for me, and honestly, I thought might be really impactful for your audience, is a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, and is the only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be.
So good.
And to me, this really, I mean, what it highlights is actually part of what I named my coaching and consulting business. It's manifestation. Um, what this is not allowing extrinsic factors to determine who you're going to become or to feel as though destiny is out of your control. Because when you start breaking down the neuroscience of this, who you become is very much in your control. Um,
Mhm.
and what we see is that if you can embrace that perspective, that's actually step number one towards self-determining who you're going to become. I'm happy to chat about that, but I'd love the quote really, it's helped me think about this is a pretty late career stage transition for me, going from, I was a tenured professor. It's not a job many people leave voluntarily. And to make a late stage career change, it takes a lot. It's scary. It's risky
Mhm.
and it's scary. I've got a family, I've got a mortgage, I've got, car payments, I've got all this stuff. And I left a secure job for a very insecure job at the moment. Um,
Mhm.
However, when I had realized that I needed to take action towards who I really wanted to be, and I needed to, that no amount of wishing or hoping or daydreaming was going to get me there, quotes like this really helped me realize that my actions and aligning my thoughts, my perspectives, and my behaviors were going to allow me to become who I want to be, and to trust in myself in that way. That I don't need external validation, that it's not risky to leave a job that's paying effectively and well, but didn't have as much room for growth that I wanted. It was risky staying. I could see my growth potential. I could see the entirety of my growth potential. And I had gotten very comfortable to be like, okay, I know exactly where I'll end my career in 20 years, 25 years, whatever it might be. And there's not a ton of growth, but I like this and it's secure and I have fun. I have good work-life balance. And for some people, that's the perfect thing. And for me, it wasn't. And I've leapt into an area where there is really no cap on where the growth could go,
Mm.
but it's also really risky. No one's going to make it happen except for me.
All
And
right,
so this is
Jamie,
where, yeah, go ahead.
I want
Ask me.
to I want to jump in with all right, so I'm spending a lot of my time talking with young adults about critical thinking.
Yeah.
And what I'm feeling with all of this, right, is that idea that we have this sort of we do a lot of things automatically without thinking. We don't actually stop and consider the steps that we need to take to get there. That's the critical thinking part. So now we bring on AI and all these automatic things that can do stuff for us.
Mhm.
And it's the idea that we need to really start working on those critical thinking skills so that we don't become lazy. So we don't become that person who's just comfortable, because that person that's comfortable today could very well be left behind in 5 years. And so I think that this is so interesting to tie into this health and wellness, because when we're taking care of ourselves, we are thinking critically. We're not just doing.
Absolutely. And it takes a lot of prospection, thinking into the future. You know, when you think about all, critical thinking is a mix of trying to bring in disparate pieces of information, analyzing them, understanding compared to what you already know. And when you're thinking about what I want in life and how I can do that effectively, you need to effectively project the life that you want. You need to effectively project decades into the future. And most of us, we live in a world in where that has become so much more difficult. And what I would say to you as well as to especially your younger clients, this is not your fault. You are not deficient. You didn't do anything wrong. You grew up in a world that we didn't grow up in, that has constant distraction and stimulation. I still remember the pain of 7-hour road trips to see my grandparents because we listened just to my dad's music and we had nothing else to do. There were no screens. Some of this was before things like Game Boy, which was so basic. And I sat and I looked out the window and I thought about life and I thought about, and we don't have that opportunity because some of the technologies evolved to take those moments away from us. And so honestly, the way that I see a lot of health and wellness, critical thinking, and really living our best lives is we are salmon swimming upstream. We are in a world in which we're trying to get to a place where we have a life full of meaning, full of purpose, full of self-direction and self-guidedness. Um, and we're in a world that's constantly trying to push us the other way towards a world where we just go with the flow and we see what's on TikTok or Instagram and we follow that and we're reactionary. We just reply to the emails, we respond to the task requests, but we're not self-directing. And so here we need to fight for it if it's going to happen for us. Because if you let whatever's easiest happen, it will not be your health, wellness, and finding meaningful, purposeful goals in life.
That's such like where I think about your quote, like making that decision of who you want to be
Yeah.
and deciding it today. So that way you can kind of live up to your expectations of the future, where so often it's whatever happened in the past creates fear, which means we don't jump in. So you taking the bold move of going out as an entrepreneur is an example of like that's an upstream. It's easier to be downstream. So how do you stay like for us when we say above center, it just means like you're living, your meaning of it's purpose. You know where you want to go and you just live up to that person you want to be more often. And when you
Mhm.
fall below center, you're in a place of like doubt or shame or fear or things like that, and you react kind of negatively. And sometimes it is scrolling, or sometimes it is over controlling or things like that. In your current place, how do you apply your teachings to yourself as you're going out there building your own company, a new place, a new footprint in the world?
Absolutely. I think wonderful and really challenging question. Um, so there's a lot of things here that come into play, and it's easy. A lot of these are easy to say, and they're incredibly difficult to implement. And I think one of the first things that I think about implementing myself, because it has, what I'll say is I developed a lot of the tools that I share with my clients, a lot of the approaches, a lot of the mindset shifts, a lot of the stuff we're talking about today, I developed as I was a professor or shortly thereafter while I was in this kind of intermediate period where I was transitioning into business, where I did not feel the extreme pressures of running my own business and having complete sole financial responsibility from top to bottom for a lot of where I'm going, where my family's going. Don't get me wrong, academia is incredibly challenging, but I would say this is more so.
Mhm.
And so I've had to use my own skills a lot more. And a few things I would say is first of all, start small. I no longer have as much time as I want to work out. I used to be able to work out pretty much every day I wanted to for a pretty significant period of time. And at least the past, few months since my business has really started to ramp up, I don't have that and I'm not used to it. And that's really gotten me down in a lot of ways. But when I think about things like exercise, mindfulness meditation, when I think about eating healthy, when I think about psychological shifts and mindset shifts, what I always tell myself is the difference between 0 and 1 is much greater than the difference between 1 and 2. Meaning the difference between not doing something and doing a little is
Mhm.
way more than the difference between doing a little and doing a lot.
Mhm.
And to me, that is the difference between I don't have time for an hour-long bike ride today. Crap, I can't get my workout in, but I am going to walk the dogs. Awesome, I'm going to get outside, I'm going to be moving. Or I have meetings all day. I do not have time to do any sort of movement. Well, there's some literature that if you just get up and do some air squats in between meetings, not only does it start pumping blood up to your brain, but it's been shown to be really beneficial for your overall metabolism as well. And because I know that those air squats aren't just me looking silly at my desk. They're actually beneficial, and they've been shown to be better than like a 30-minute workout if you spread out a number of them throughout the day, in terms of helping your overall metabolic health. And so here, starting small.
Mhm.
And then the second big one that I would say that comes to mind is self-compassion. Um, Many days that aren't perfect, many days where I struggle with everything that I preach and that I teach. Um, and what I say is we're all human and you can't do all of it. And the challenge is we live in a world again where when you look on social spaces, it looks like everybody's doing it perfectly because that's the image they present. And whether we recognize it or not, we're internalizing that and recognizing that there's almost no way, unless you are living off a trust fund on a beach somewhere, where you can have every aspect of wellness covered every single day. I really did some of the math. I was like, if I really did everything I wanted to feel fully well to its maximum degree, I'd start work at noon and be done by 4. And then I'd be
Or
losing out on, right? And I'd be losing out on the fulfillment of what I get from work.
yeah.
And so I really have leveraged those two to remind myself that these small directional changes make a huge impact, but humans aren't good at seeing over long periods of time. So you've got to be patient, and it's not my strength. So I'm still working on it day to day.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like we are in an age of information overload. So there's so much like I could be doing this, I could be doing that. And the information overload is making you feel like you're not doing enough. So then you don't do anything versus getting creative on how you do it in what works for you today. Like we always, Allison has like this great quote. So don't let the start stop you. And so same thing with like health and wellness. Like do not, you know, do not let it happen. So you got to, think forward of that. I'd love to ask more about like where you're taking the business. So, like how are you working with clients now? Where is it where's your business headed? Because I just think this space is so fascinating and there's so much about the brain that is unknown to us.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really excited about the direction I'm taking this. Where I had started as I transitioned out of academia was into a pretty what I'd call standard coaching and consulting track, where I wanted to take the skills I had, bring them to individuals in a coaching perspective, make them actionable, but then also take them to organizations to do workshops, to do some consulting work about constructing work environments that are conducive to bringing this kind of thing in and making company culture align with this so that you can have your employees really benefiting this from a place where they spend a lot of their lifetime is in an office if you're there or as part of a company. Um, and I've loved it and I'm going to continue doing all that. However, I had some thoughts that really took me into a different trajectory. And the first was, I'm missing most of the people who really need this.
Mm,
Most of the people who really need more manageable, approachable, sustainable practices and approaches to health and wellness are not in a workplace that's going to support this type of consulting work and fund it. They're not the type of people who are going to be able to afford individual coaching. They are the really busy, multiple job working parents, whatever it might look like, the young professionals who are struggling to get their anxiety under control, but really don't have the resources yet, and they feel overwhelmed, like you're saying. And so I started thinking about, how do I reach more people? And I have taken one pivot away from a one-to-one or a one-to-many model, or excuse me, a one-to-one or one-to-few model. And I've pivoted into what I see as a one-to-many model. So how can I find the broadest reach possible? And then the other strategy, thinking about human psychology, was, how do you make health and wellness as frictionless as possible?
mm,
How do you make all of these practices as easy as possible with the least amount of time? Because what we see is, people know that they should be meditating 10 minutes a day, and people like it. I like it.
mhm.
I found a place where I enjoy it, but it's really hard to fit in 10 minutes. It seems ridiculous, and we all know logically that we all have the time. We all know that. We know it.
Mhm.
But in the moment, we don't have the time, do we? And so here, I've been trying to find, like I was saying, the smallest ways to bring people into health and wellness, these small changes for big transformation. And as I was doing all this research to how to make it bite sized, how to make it easy, how to make it manageable, how to reach the most people possible, how to change the world, I was also starting to get into more and more literature on some of these functional mushroom coffees and nootropic coffee blends and these types of things that were brain boosting alternatives to coffee or supplements to coffee. And I started doing more and more research and finding challenges and deficiencies and downfalls in that entire industry, that I started thinking, could I do something in this space that would fit all these criteria of getting people into wellness in the most frictionless, manageable way possible? And so all of this stuff is converging and swirling this past summer. And what I've decided to do out of it, and I'm extremely excited about this vision, is I have developed a powdered coffee enhancer. And it is a powder that you add to your coffee. So keep your morning coffee routine, keep your midday coffee routine. Don't change to my coffee. And it adds to your coffee, and it stays as flavorless as possible. My early feedback is indicating some people do notice the flavor, some people don't. But for those who do notice it, they tend to not mind it, and they tend to get used to it. So I've made it very flavorless as compared to most traditional, like mushroom coffees, tend to have a pretty robust flavor, whether you like it or not. But the idea is, what I've added in here is some science-backed ingredients that are all natural. And these are ingredients I've spent plenty of time researching and understanding, but they fall into two general camps: adaptogens and nootropics. So, adaptogens are plant and mushroom based compounds that help with managing stress and anxiety and regulating not only perceived stress, but helping with hormonal stress too. So, it's been shown that taking some of these daily for prolonged periods help with reducing how you see stress in the world and your cortisol levels as well. And not only does this help you think more clearly, because stress tends to cause us to be myopic, be more impulsive. It tends to also give us more energy because stress exhausts us. So if we're feeling less stressed over time, we have more energy, we're thinking more clearly. The other component of this is a class of ingredients called nootropics. And these are another set of brain boosting ingredients that act more quickly. They act immediately. And what they do is they help with a number of different things that all are focused around cognition, helping you to think more clearly, boosting your mood, boosting your motivation, boosting your memory, boosting your attention, and boosting your focus. And what I've done is I've put all these together into one daily packet that you can toss into your coffee as a starting point to give you more mental clarity, focus, and attention and energy throughout the day. So you need less coffee. Your coffee works better for you. But then what you can do is pair your morning cup of coffee out of your beautiful Revel cup um, with a short 2-minute wellness habit. And so, as I've been sending these packets out to people to try, I've been sending out a set of 5 2-minute wellness cards that range from anything like taking a physiological sigh, which is a specific way of breathing that is known to calm the nervous system quickly. And Allison, I see you're doing it right now. And for your audience, let's do it right now. There's nothing better than experiencing it. So if you're sitting here and you want to think more clearly, or you're stressed and you're struggling, you're in traffic, you're struggling to get your anxiety down, this is a way to do it in 10 seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through our nose and take a full breath in. When you're at the top, sip a little bit more air in through your nose. And then blow out through your mouth like it's a straw for as long as possible without passing out. Let's do it one more time. How do we feel?
All right, I love that, but I don't like looking at myself on the Zoom while I'm doing it.
Honestly, though, you could feel like my fingers got a little light. Like it felt like just lighter.
Okay, so you're feeling a little bit calmer, a little bit like you've reset.
Yeah. Yeah.
This for me has been life-changing. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I've done is I've compiled a set of these types of practices. Some of them are longer. This is one of the shortest ones that you can do that has science backing to be meaningful. But there's others that are things like intention setting, things
Mm-hmm.
like gratitudes that are known to have neurobiological benefits to help your brain function, but also things that are going to be helpful for you either in the morning while you're having your cup of coffee
Mm-hmm.
or something that is good to practice while you're calm so you can use while you're stressed.
Oh, that's good.
And I'll give you an example of one of those if you'd like. I mean, the
Sure.
physiological sigh is a good one, the one we just did, that breathing pattern. But another one that I love, I call name it to tame it. And this is one in which you identify the emotions you're feeling and verbalize them. Because what ends up happening is we tend to often get really caught up in our emotions. We're
Mm-hmm.
stressed. And what this does is it activates a brain region. There's one on each side of left and right side of your brain called the amygdala. Now, have either of you heard of the amygdala before?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Also, and
Mm-hmm.
what do we recall about the amygdala, Allison?
It looks like an almond.
It does. It looks like an almond. This is your fear and anger center of the brain. Fear, anxiety, and anger. It's very emotional. It's very ancient in terms of evolution. So we have a very similar amygdala as dogs and cats and rats and things like that. So it's very visceral emotion and it's not very logical. And so when you're starting to get stressed, this part of your brain is lighting up. And what can happen is this can override your emotions and start creating a physiological stress response, which then amps you up into this vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And a really effective way to slow it down is to activate another brain region, which sits right up front. It's called the prefrontal cortex. This is your really human cognitive, let's critically analyze, let's plan, let's assess our emotions. This part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, can actually shut down and quiet your amygdala,
Mm.
but it doesn't always do it effectively. So what's the way to jumpstart it? Kind of like jumpstarting your chainsaw, your lawnmower, or whatever, is if you start naming the emotions as specifically as you can, it activates your prefrontal cortex and it starts rationalizing your emotion.
Mm.
So to give you an example, I'm sitting in traffic and I'm late for a meeting and I'm running late and traffic has just built up because some idiot tried to merge without using their blinker and they crashed and blah, blah. And I'm sitting here with my fingers, my knuckles white on, thinking I'm late for this important meeting. I'm late for this important meeting. How could you do this to me? Oh, and it's ramping me up. And what's happening in your brain is your brain is going into fight or flight survival mode. You're not thinking of this as I'm going to be 10 minutes late to an important meeting. You're thinking of this as life and death. That's how your brain is wired to think about this. You're thinking, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, whether or not you recognize that. And so by activating your prefrontal cortex, by saying, oh, right now I'm feeling frustrated because this was out of my control. I'm feeling kind of trapped because even if I want to leave, I can't. And I'm not used to not being able to leave if I want to. And I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about my job because I know this is an important meeting. And I think my boss might judge me if I'm going to be anxious or anxious, if I'm going to be late.
Right.
And now, once you verbalized it, your prefrontal cortex is starting to quiet down that fight or flight response. And now, what you can do is you can do something called decatastrophizing. and it's something we do naturally. But to do this, it sounds complex and fancy. Use that word when you want to. But really, what it is asking yourself, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm late to this meeting and it's because of traffic, which everyone understands. And I'll apologize to my boss and to the client about it and make sure it doesn't happen again. Am I really going to get fired? And if I really get fired, am I really going to never find a job again? And if I really never find a job again, am I really never going to find a person who loves me because I can't hold down a job? And if that happens, am I really going to die alone and sad in some ditch somewhere? Maybe being late 10 minutes for this meeting isn't the worst thing in the world. But we struggle to do that very simple process because we never start. So
Yeah.
don't let the starting stop you, right, Allison?
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. I've had students. I had a student that did this to me. She went from not doing a homework assignment to living homeless in her car within about 10 seconds. And I just stood there like a deer in headlights, like, what just happened? I have no idea what just happened. And it truly made me have to reach out to find out, what do you do with these in this situation? And but yeah, learning to calm her down and helping her to name it, which I think I did instinctively,
Mhm.
helps. It's kind of like, hey, it's okay. It's like a
It's
reading
also like,
assignment.
yeah, and then like, but hearing the science behind it, of how the brain works, then you, like Allison, as a professor, you know that her brain, there's a function in her brain that's overriding the logic. So if you can
Hmm.
help her, the prefrontal cortex, start thinking about other things, then it'll kind of put a little bit of a sprinkle of, powder to kind of lighten the flame that's causing her fear so much. It really is
Ah,
fascinating when you think about the science behind it.
And for me, it really helps with the non-judgment. That's really a place that I've gotten to because when you think about, so Allison, for your students who are a little bit younger, prefrontal cortex doesn't fully mature until your late 20s. Until
yeah,
then,
there.
it's not working at 100%,
And some later than that.
right?
Some later than that, yeah.
I'm still
Or
waiting,
or they just never quite got where it needed to get.
right?
Now,
And
I
then
think
things
that
like,
this is just so interesting, because you know we all have to deal with these emotions all the time. And I will say that through different stages of our lives, we get ambushed by our brain, and it's a matter of practice, right? So you sending out the little cards and they remind us, but it's a practice. It's like yoga. It's a practice. It's not a destination, right?
yeah,
It's a practice.
and we don't practice well in emergency, critical, stressful, intense situations. That's not the time to practice. You practice when things are calm. And so that's one of the reasons that I love tying these cards and these practices to your morning cup of coffee. It's a time where you could take 2 minutes while you're stirring your coffee and having your first few sips along this enhancer that hopefully you love, to stop and say, let me practice naming my emotions right now. How do I feel right now? I'm feeling really worried about the day. I'm worried because I didn't get enough work done last night and I feel like I'm underprepared. That's a very different feeling than I'm worried because I'm very prepared, but the stakes are so high. Those are two very different things, but we often conflate things like this. And so the emotion never gets named. But if you can name it in that calm moment as you're starting your day, then when the presentation's about to happen and you're freaking out, you've already practiced this. And there's something called neuroplasticity, the plasticness of our brain.
Mhm.
Use it or lose it. And what
Hmm.
fires together wires together. The more you practice, the more you'll fall into that as habit during times of stress and challenge. You're not going to accidentally stumble into name it to tame it and decatastrophization. You're going to practice it. And then you're going to find if you practice it enough, you can use it just like this when you're super stressed. And the science says it, and I've lived it. And I'm sure the two of you have done similar things.
I do my grocery list in my head. I was taught to do, like, just do your grocery shopping in your head. If you have a moment where you start, like, your nervous system's
Oh,
feeling out of whack, you go, okay, I need to go to the store. What do I need at the store? And like you're thinking somewhere else instead of thinking about everything else that's going on within you. So that's really fun for me.
Slows
I
the
love it.
momentum, slows the momentum down. Oh, well, Jamie, this has been such a great conversation. I feel like I could talk to you forever. There's so many different connections with what you're saying, with what I feel like is so healthy for people to just learn, because when people are really stressed, they are out of control and they are feeling worse. And that momentum is so contagious. And there's so many people that they meet in our world, like they meet below center, stressed. And then it
Mhm.
just kind of stays contagious. And they get almost in a victim loop, feeling like they can't get out of it because they're so stressed. But then the people around them are stressed, and everyone's saying, the people can't drive around here, instead of calming down.
Mhm.
What's the word? We're not the only ones stuck in traffic. And, really kind of, I love the attitude of like gratitude replacing any sort of stress and fear. So when you are in that moment of traffic, starting your meeting, be like, thank you for waiting. There's nothing more important than this meeting. Instead of
Mhm.
starting off with this, like, I'm so sorry and blaming, but try and do something like that. So,
I've found that the more I've practiced, because I do morning gratitudes each day, and this
mhm.
is another one of the cards that I put along with the coffee is what I found is it was really hard to start, but I've gotten really good at taking gratitudes and inserting them in my toughest moments. And
Mm.
oftentimes it's irrelevant to what is actually happening. So this meeting, you're late, it's going terribly. Um, I pause and I go back to the basics. I'm in traffic, the meeting's going bad, whatever it might be. I stop and I say, did I have a safe bed to sleep in last night? Oh, I'm so glad I had a safe bed. Do I get to drink clean water whenever I want? Anytime I want a glass of clean water, I can have it. What a good life. And it gives me perspective on, yeah, this feels like a problem in a microcosm. But when you look at how life could be and all possible options, we live very fantastic lives. And that often gives me enough perspective to stop and say, let me not worry about this. Let me care, but let me not worry.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us. And if somebody was to want to get in touch with you, or how can they find your work?
Yeah, so it is my company is called Manifest Wellness, and so they can find me at manifestwellness.co, or find me on LinkedIn or other socials under Jamey Maniscalco, and I'm sure you could link some of this if you like in the show captions. But I'd love to hear people, and right now I'm actually doing some of this product testing with the coffee enhancers. So if you have people in your network, you all listening are interested in trying it, reach out to me. I'm trying to get as many people to try it and give me feedback. And generally, it's been great. And I love to share it and pay it forward.
That's wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on going for it and building such a great program. And I feel like you could just feel your heart as you're talking through about what the work you're doing and the meaning behind it. So we appreciate you spending time with us.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
Allison, don't you love when you have an interview with somebody and the work he's doing? He's so smart, like neuroscientist and all this stuff, and it just applies so much to some of the stuff we're doing with our clients with the above center, below center work, that it's like there's just people that we keep getting into our network that are on the same path of wanting people to like live their best version of themselves in a way that feels like less stress. And I don't know. I love that conversation.
I know the above center framework has really been so beneficial to so many people. I know we have what's known by me. Like I love that part. Like I know when I get stressed and worked up, and I also know what helps me relax. And then, but when we think about it from the other perspective of what other people see, I think
Hmm.
that also puts it in perspective of what
Yeah.
we should do. And so anyway, let's work on living above
Yeah.
center.
When I'm excited to get his little supplement. I've always been wanting to try something like that. So he's so excited about it.
I like the little mindfulness cards too. 2 minutes. I can do 2 minutes. I can do anything in 2 minutes.
Start doing your squats. All right, love you. Have
It's
better together.
better together. Bye.
Learn more at therebelcompanies.com.
That was fun.